Welcome to the OtherWorldsGG Community Cast. This is episode number 17. I am Table for Two, and I have the pleasure of being joined today by Mellified and Alien Pickle. How's it going?
I thought we were going to number the show by hex digits.
Shoot.
Did we forget that part? Damn it! Oh no. I'm doing great. You know, it's a beautiful day here in Texas. It's spring, so we had somebody we knew who was moving to an area they couldn't keep their 5 chickens, their 5 hens that lay eggs. So we inherited those, and then we had one of our existing chickens. She was brooding, which means she's been sitting on her eggs for the last few weeks. And she hatched a couple baby chicks already. So we have an abundance of chickens here at the Mellified compound. It's kind of fun.
Jim used to have chickens, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm going to have chickens again, but I have to put up the anti-hawk kind of out there.
You know,
bad here.
You know, living out in the country now, maybe I should start getting some chickens.
I'll tell you what, we let ours roam in the yard. There's enough, air cover from trees and stuff that they do okay. And if you look at the yolks of a store-bought egg, we all think of eggs as being yellow. Our eggs are bright, like 80s neon bright orange.
Like red cone orange.
Yeah, they're just super, super orange. Like, and it's because of all the extra vitamins and minerals they get just from grazing over a large open space. It's pretty amazing how much of a difference it makes, and the quality. I mean, they're not as big as the grocery store eggs, but the quality of the eggs is a lot better.
Yeah. Well, in North Carolina, we have a lot of problem with like ticks and fleas and whatever, right? And you got a yard full of chickens, you don't have any problems with that stuff.
Yeah, I bet. Apparently, if you have snakes, I've been told you get a donkey because the donkeys will chase the snakes away. That seems like kind of a weird bit of farm trivia to me, but apparently
same deal with ogres, right? Like if you have ogres in your
that is a very nice, timely, I will add, Shrek reference. Very good.
Nice.
But yeah, so it's been a fun stretch here.
No, that's fun. Yeah, I mean, every morning I'm close enough to my new job where I can kind of like walk over there, and there's a farm across the street, and you just hear this rooster just going to town every morning. It's quite entertaining.
Yeah, that was a problem that I had because we had roosters seem to be kind of like dogs in that the smaller they are, the louder they are. We had like a little Cornish hen, like just a pocket rooster, right? And that bastard would just never shut up. It was like, hey, the sun's been up for 10 hours, bro. Just give it up.
Ours crows, throughout the day, but not continuously generally. And we don't hear them in the house because they're kind of on the other side of the yard. So
I also came to realize that chickens can kind of be assholes because I went to go visit Jim one time, and I stayed the night at their place, and like the next morning I'm like leaving to go home, and I'm like walking out to my car, and there's like the fence line is just like all chickens, and they're all staring at me. It's like, and I'm just like, oh my god, like,
Oh, dude, they lived until you had them actually attack you. Like you look out the window, right?
It's like Link with his sword
across the yard. Yeah, it was very much like chicken abuse in the Zelda games, right? Because like so she went out to the coop, and the chicken was like, it flew up on the roof of the coop, so it's like eye to eye, like staring at her, right? And then she's just like, well, what are you going to do about it? And then he decided to do something about it. And then that ended up in her like kicking the chicken up against the house, and then the chicken like rebounds off the house like, oh yeah, and chasing her around the yard. So she comes in and she's like, man, you got to get rid of that rooster. I was like, wow, that was funny as hell.
I have heard someone told me, someone who keeps chickens, that if chickens were bigger, like they were supposedly, couple million years ago when they were dinosaurs, that it makes perfect sense they would rule the earth because they are nasty, nasty creatures. They are mean. They fight dirty. It's just the size is the only reason that you have a problem. But I don't know. I don't know that I buy it because my chickens aren't that aggressive, I guess, maybe is part of it. But we've lost a couple of our flock, and one of them was our dog got out, and she just ran up to the chicken, grabbed it by the neck, and shook and snapped its neck and killed it in like the blink of an eye. So first of all, we do not have good protective dogs apparently for our livestock. Mental note to not trust them with any sheep. But the other thing was, we lost another one that just disappeared. We don't know if it wandered off. We don't know if a hawk got it, but I was expecting some throwdown fights or something, but I haven't seen it.
Jim just posted a link in admin chat, and I gotta ask: Are those roosters wearing bell bottoms? What the hell's going on with this?
Yeah, they're chicken breed from the 70s.
Oh my gosh!
No, but consider that's a human-sized door that they just walked past.
No, they're not that big. There's no way.
Yeah, it's like an ostrich-ass chicken.
Isn't that like the things in the chocobos in Final Fantasy games? That's what that looks like to me. Oh, that's got to be a person. There's no way. In a suit.
Here's one actually climbing out of a coop. Joan had bought it was trying to remember what the heck, Jersey Giants, right? You bought a couple of those, and unfortunately the dog in the neighborhood here killed them. Yeah. And partially killed them. I had to finish them.
But, that's even worse, but yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's amazing how much a chicken can just run around looking normal with like half of itself missing. That's kind of a weird nature thing.
Yeah. But anywho, moving on from that. Jeez.
Yeah. I was just saying, this is making great podcast, right?
So moving on from chickens, I do have a thing I want to discuss, and that's this weird, interesting like live service that we're kind of in with games, right? It occurred to me just this morning. I loaded up. We were talking about the Halo Master Chief Collection, and even before we started recording this morning, I loaded up the Master Chief Collection on my own because I was wanting to check it out. And I was looking through some of because you can play and gain points to where you can like unlock skins for the different Halo games or your guns, vehicles, stuff like that. And early on in the Master Chief Collection, when they put that stuff out for the PC, a couple of the Warthog skins for the Halo CE were Jurassic Park themed. And one of them was called Park Ranger, and the other one was called Clever Girl. And I took a look to see where those were on my list, because I was like, yeah, I've unlocked these. And I was like, oh, they look different now. And it turns out that back in December with an update, they've all been updated to distance themselves from the Jurassic Park influence. So the skins are similar, they've just had their color palette changed and some symbols kind of reorganized to make them distanced away from, and they've even changed the name, I think, of Clever Girl to be like Medic or something like that. I just find that interesting to a point where it's enough of a difference to where it really shouldn't matter. But yet, at some point, someone still got kind of some thing stuck somewhere where the sun don't shine to make a fuss about it. And I find that fascinating, and I find that also very unfortunate.
Do you think it's that, or that they lost the rights to?
I don't think they lost the rights to anything. I don't think there was a rights issue at all, because the Warthog is a drastically different shaped vehicle than the Jeeps from Jurassic Park. It was just the color scheme was similar, right? There was a similar variant of a color scheme to kind of make it like similar to maybe like a Jeep from Jurassic Park or something like that. And I think that's why a lot of people went and unlocked those or tried to unlock them, because that was a cool little like nod to Jurassic Park. Not that they were directly trying to rip off an IP or steal a brand or anything like that. And I find that kind of stuff
just a little homage, basically.
Right. And I think when people do that, it's a nice little nod, saying because you like a thing, but to change it because maybe they might get in trouble for it, to me just seems, I just hate that nature of, we can't really show affection for the things that we appreciate because, you know, it violates some kind of like copyright law somewhere. And
it's like you can't name a gun Italian Plumber because Nintendo will come
or something, you know, like,
yeah. What game are you talking about?
Halo Master Chief Collection. So I know this has been pretty notorious in like a lot of other games, but licensing is another one. So like, and again, in the world of live services, right? So like, let's take, and this is a pretty known one at this point. Let's take Grand Theft Auto 4, for example. If you bought the Steam version of Grand Theft Auto 4, a lot of that music was removed from the game because of licensing. They actually went and changed the physical or the digital version of this game that you purchased because of licensing. And thankfully, the modders out there have changed it to where you can get the mod to put the music all back in it from the original, right? Because modders be like that. Thank you, by the way. But it's weird because, like, if I have a physical version of the disc, that stuff doesn't matter. So, to me, at what point does like these copyright things really need to be enforced, or licensing? Like, it's just weird to me. Like, I don't understand it. I don't know. What's your all's take on some of that stuff?
The one that makes me sad is when a game gets pulled from sale because the license expires and it's not worth it to pay the money to renew, right? So we lose the ability to purchase that game. That recently happened with Forza Horizon 3, which is, I would argue, one of the best racing, arcade racing games ever made. And 4 is better in some ways, but I think 3 still, especially the Hot Wheels mode in 3, is spectacular. And I don't fully understand the reasoning of car manufacturers, why they wouldn't want that game to continue and why they wouldn't cut a deal on the likeness rights or the usage rights on those things, because it seems to me like it's just one big advertisement for Ford or Porsche or whoever to have their game, have their game.
Yeah, but car manufacturers are freaking weird about their licensing stuff. Like, I remember Porsche was like, well, you can use our stuff in the Forza, but you can't have any damage models because we don't want to show a Porsche with a scuff on it. So can't, and then it was just like, oh yeah, we don't really need your stuff then, bye. So yeah, it was strange. And I think it was Horizon, they actually came back and then sold a Porsche specific pack when Porsche finally came around and was like, oh yeah, maybe we do need to be in this game. It's just strange stuff, though.
Yeah. I guess that's the one that stands out to me as being strange. But the music is another one where at least they can just patch out the music, I guess, and it's not, quite so bad.
Well, okay.
You mentioned...
Well, so I guess what I'm trying to get at is, at what point... Now, patches and updates are one thing, right? To like fix a bug or fix a thing or to tweak a thing, right? Like there's a certain level there. But at what point as a consumer do I buy a thing that then is acceptable to say you can change the thing that I've already paid money for? Did you see where I'm going with that?
Particularly when you're taking stuff away.
Right. Like when something is flat out completely removed as an element, because I would argue that music is an integral part of the Grand Theft Auto experience, right? Like they use it very much in like the radio stations. It plays into the jokes in a lot of cases. But like when you especially like the main theme song, apparently was removed from Grand Theft Auto 4, and that's kind of like the big thing, like, hey, hang on a second here, guys. So like when I've bought something that I've had for a number of years, and then all of a sudden, I know it's kind of a moot point to argue about it because modders are great, and that's why we love modders, but at the same time, where's the ethics here that says, hey, like, I've already purchased this, don't go changing this thing that I've purchased?
Well, here's the thing, right? Is number one, it's not. I mean, modders are great. Thank you to all the people who sacrifice their weekends and evenings to make more stuff for us to play. But that doesn't help console players, right?
Right.
If Microsoft patches it out, it's gone.
Yeah.
Or whoever. But like, how do I put this? The part that is upsetting to me is the idea that we as consumers do not have any rights when it comes to digital content. And this was we've touched on this a few times over the last 15, 20 years as digital distribution has become bigger and bigger. But if you get banned by Valve, let's say, for cheating in Dota 2, you lose access to your entire library of games, which at this point, it might be heirloom worthy if you got a couple of Steam games, right? That's a big financial consequence for something that is arguably unrelated. And I think what's going to end up happening is, well, to be fair, we have seen the marketplace make a difference here in that Microsoft now offers refunds on digital purchases, similar to what Valve started. And like, I do give Valve kudos for being pro-consumer in that sense, although I don't think they've solved all of the issues around the 2-hour refund window, because a lot of indies, might make games that are smaller and then they lose money because people play the game, beat it, and refund it. But where I guess I'm trying to get to, this sprawls into a lot of different areas. But for me, I suspect what is going to happen is we are going to end up with legislation that defines a consumer bill of rights for digital purchases. And if you look back at the Consumer Protection Act that was passed in the 70s, a lot of the things that we are struggling with today are actually pretty common sort of excesses of capitalist economies, and the government stepped in and put consumer protection laws in place to make sure that consumers were not being ripped off.
Right.
And I don't love legislation as a solution, as a general rule, but I do think that we're probably at the point where we need to have some kind of guidelines, even if it's just guidelines, not a law, right, but something to say this is the expected standard. Like, I think we should have the option to go back to the 1.0 game launch, or pick really any version of the game on console or PC, just period. Right? This idea that we're forced to the latest version is kind of crap, because you could make then an informed choice as a consumer. I want to play Grand Theft Auto 1.9 because that's the version before they had to take out the music.
Wasn't that?
But it's got the bugs fixed, right?
Right. Wasn't that the big thing about like Counter-Strike? Is like Counter-Strike 1.5 was like the big hotness that everybody loved, and so much so that like Valve actually, or Steam put that just that version out. As like,
I don't remember that, but I mean it does sound vaguely familiar, so it's possible. I was thinking of Stellaris, actually, which we talked about last episode.
Well, Paradox did an interesting thing with that, because for a while, and you may still even be able to do it, but for a while you could actually go back and play previous versions of their game.
They actually built an entire launcher and store to let people do it. So if you go and link your Paradox account to your Steam account, it'll pull in all your purchases, and then you can download the Paradox launcher, which will install copies of your games that you own from Paradox, and you can go into a menu and pick which major version you want to play, all the way back to Stellaris 1.0.
Yeah, and that was pretty cool because that came in handy too with mods. Because, like, you know, an update that came out broke a mod that, you know, maybe you were in the middle of doing a long form gameplay session with somebody, and it was just like, well, shit, now that's broken, and we can't do that, and can't finish what we started. You know, and I've run into that too, which is why I actually stopped playing Stellaris for so long. And I'm actually enjoying where the state it's at now because it seems to be a lot more stable than it was before.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go you one better. What about if instead of letting you like revert to whatever version off the list, can I have multiple simultaneous installs? Because I might want to play the latest and greatest, but also have the version that's compatible with that good Star Trek mod. So,
yeah,
or,
both. Well, you know, if you play Minecraft,
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Yep. Minecraft allows you to do exactly that. Gets to be kind of a mess sometimes. To be frank, if you go into that Minecraft folder, you're like, why do I have 800 folders with different version number strings on them? But yeah, they absolutely did that because the mod community is so strong in Minecraft, and that's really the reason to play the game for a lot of people. They've had to, sort of accommodate that, or they've made the smart business decision to accommodate that, maybe is the way to say it. I just think, in terms of games as a service, right? The idea of games as a living, World of Warcraft had the big push was to, why won't Blizzard give us classic servers? We want to go play WoW 1.0. We want to play Burning Crusade, WoW 2.0. And Blizzard said, like, that doesn't exist anymore. Because what they were doing was patching the live service databases that actually hold, this may be getting a little in the technical weeds here, but MMOs, there's no like one thing that makes up an MMO, right? It's the game server code versions that are there. There's databases, and the databases have loot drop tables. They have monster, spawn rates and all those things defined. So you end up with a melange of different pieces that are all kind of working together. And over the lifetime of the service, as you update one thing, then okay, yeah, now you got to go update the game server. But nobody's necessarily thinking about or keeping track of, okay, this is what is needed for version 1.038 of World of Warcraft. Because you're so busy in the thing that you're not thinking.
Are we losing Mellified?
Oh, like,
hello.
I'm here. Can you not hear me?
You were cutting out pretty hard there for a little minute. So.
Oh shit! All right. Well, so anyway, I'll start over and we can edit it. How's that?
That's fine. You were on the point though of talking about like the Warcraft thing, where Blizzard was having that trouble, and to their credit, like I get where they were coming from, but the fact that nobody was saying like we've got archived versions of this or like notes on this or any of that kind of stuff, to me was a little frustrating too, because yeah, there was clearly a community of people who wanted to play this, and again, we talked about it in our news segment. Blizzard's like, you think you want this, but you don't, and it's just like, all right, well then tell that to the thousands of people who are playing on private servers every frickin' day that's what they want, or that's not what they really want. Like, and it came to a point where, one of the most popular, like 1.0 pirated servers out there got so popular that they had to put a cease and desist out there and was like, hey, let's actually try and talk to these folks. And eventually they came out with their, their WoW Classic servers, and so now they're doing their Classic series. But, I just don't know how well that's gonna, or how long that's gonna, last, But good on them for trying to have it. The thing that I think that's frustrating with this though is it's because like you said they didn't have any of that original stuff. Some of their when they came out with the classic version, they've come out with it, but they've also like patched some things that were never like fully patched until like an expansion or those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right? World Classic had to be reinvented or recreated because nobody was thinking about preserving that. And to be frank, like I'm not sure anybody thought that anybody would want to preserve it or want to go back to it. But I think as this is where I'm thinking about guidelines from Consumer Protection Agency or something that would say like, hey, consumers have the right to revert this digital product to a past version that was available with all of the content as it was at that point in time. And I don't think that's an unreasonable thing. And if you make it the standard, then it gets written into these contracts with the rights holders, and the rights holders can't hold the game makers hostage for more money because that's just the expected thing. And so it becomes part of the landscape. And, it doesn't harm the creator of a piece of music to have that in a game. It's not like anybody's spending 20 minutes loading GTA to go listen to one song. Yeah. So I just, I don't see the downside of this. And I, as a spent a stupid amount of money over the years on digital content because I was a very early adopter because I hate stuff. I hate discs everywhere. Cartridges everywhere, dear God. This is super important to me because I have a lot of money tied up in digital purchases that I'd be really, really sad if they left. And I've started like backing up my movies with 4K rips of movies that I own because I only own them. I only own streaming rights to those movies. I can't download a 4K version of those, even though I've paid for them.
Right. Well, I mean, and I think you've struck a chord with like to some of these companies like what was it? Homeworld. So Homeworld had their game Cataclysm, right? And when Gearbox was in the process of trying to do like the HD remaster of Homeworld 1 and 2, they wanted to do Cataclysm, but they didn't have the source code anymore because the source code was like gone. Like somehow in the mix of a lot of things, all that stuff just like went away. It would almost seem to be to me like, and I know we were talking about like as little government involvement as possible, but wouldn't it be crazy interesting if there was a section of a Library of Congress for source code for games, like, or something like that, or I don't know, like, because when they have to do like the movies, right? They have to provide what was it like the American movie like registrar or something like that. Like you have to provide an original print of the film to go into the archived collection or whatever it is. And for like the longest time, like Lucas wasn't providing that for Star Wars or something like that. But but something to that effect would be quite interesting to see because then with the Mass Effect remake that's coming out, the remaster that's coming out for that, there's a whole portion, and I know it's not that big of a deal to some people, and it's not necessarily a big deal to me either. But it does kind of sting a little bit when the source code for that particular little portion of DLC was corrupted enough to where they couldn't reincorporate it into the remaster. So you quite literally have to have an old version of the game if you want to try and see what that content was all about.
Yeah, and in that case, it seemed like it was pretty inconsequential, which I think is why they did effort into restoring it. But we've had this issue with movies for a long time where the film is literally rotting away in the canister because it wasn't properly preserved, or the BBC writing over the master tapes of Doctor Who episodes that have now gone forever because they were broadcast once in the 60s and now we don't have them anymore. Like, this is where OtherWorldsGG speaks to me as as something I want to be a part of, because we talk about games preservation, and it's not any different than these other examples. But games for me is such a big part of my experience growing up, who I am as a person, that it's really important to me that I have the experiences available for my kids. I want them to experience. I want my grandkids to experience, the hell that is Mega Man someday.
Yeah.
Right. Or some of these precision platformers.
Hey, kid! I heard you like Squadrons. Have you heard of this game? Have you heard of TIE Fighter?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Right. And I think we have a tendency to very much have nostalgia, goggles on for a lot of these older things that we remember very fondly. Being a kid who grew up with a Commodore 64 and going back and playing some of those games has been a very revelatory experience for me. I now understand just how powerful nostalgia can cloud our perception of what we were actually doing.
Right.
But at the same time, like, that's part of our history, and to lose history is sad. Like,
have you
depresses me.
Have you gone back and played TIE Fighter in any recent history?
It's been a few years. Yeah, I haven't graphical upgrade mods and stuff that people have been doing. But I played it probably 5 or 6 years ago again.
Yeah. Well, the gameplay is challenging. It's not an easy game. Like, there are consequences. Like, if you blow up, start over. Like,
yep.
And it's also not like, oh God, I can't look at this. It's you get the resolution up. Because 320 by 200 ain't nobody can look at that anymore. But
right.
Maybe on the phone screen, but. Like if you go in and do the DirectX tweak and you get that thing up to like 1080p, and you don't have to modify textures or anything, because XWing Alliance, yes, you can do crazy, but the original TIE Fighter, not so much. And that's why there's this big effort that's going on in a couple of community projects to port the old TIE Fighter missions over, and then there's another group that's remaking the whole engine in Unity. And I almost went Blue Drake. I'm like, dude, they're doing it in Unreal. But they're bringing it over to that. So there's these things, because people know that core gameplay, the way the missions were designed, the story that's in it, it's all pristine. It's good. There's nothing wrong with that. And why new games are not being made that utilize that successful formula. It doesn't have to be TIE Fighter, but you can use things that you learned from TIE Fighter to structure a game in such a way that yes, it is a scripted campaign with randomized elements so that you can replay endlessly and you're not going to get the same situation, but the story beat can be the same, right? And I don't understand why nobody actually uses the wisdom of the old middle era games, because the early stuff like Atari 2600 and whatever, it's like, no.
Well, they were coming from the arcade, design aesthetics, right? Which ironically mobile has gone back to, and a lot of our pay to win, pay to play stuff comes from the arcade days. But anyway,
the arcade days, they make sense in a mobile context, because in a mobile context, it's like, in an arcade, I was going to play for, a couple minutes on a court, and then game over, start over. Well, in a phone situation, I might only have a few minutes to sit there, like I'm killing time while I'm in a waiting room or something.
Yep.
Or whatever. So yeah, I want a single serving experience. I don't need a 20-hour long.
I don't need KOTOR, but apparently you can get KOTOR. It's like.
And I wonder how many people have actually played it much. It's like I bought it because it's there and nostalgia goggles, but then, I really play it on the PC, right? Because who's got time to sit and squint at their phone for 30 hours?
Well, yeah, but it's just kind of to your point. It's just the mobile stuff that they keep putting things on there to grab your attention, so that way you'll throw more ad revenue or more button presses on the screen to get your attention there. It's like it's the Flappy Bird thing, right? Like everybody's trying to be the new Flappy Bird.
But I just wish that people would go back and look at the design aesthetic of these games, then the language that they used and how it was architected, and just be like, there's some things to be learned by that because it was so successful.
Like I want a game to look pretty, but like I don't necessarily need it to be, oh my god, 4K textures in order. It's the Call of Duty thing, right? Like I can't stand playing Call of Duty because it's got to frickin' render all of my textures every time I play the damn game, and you're just like, can we not?
I will come out of left field here and try and give my theory on why it is that we've lost the knowledge of those old games. Because I think there's actually a really clear connection in my mind, at least. The industry is notoriously bad about respecting people's work-life balance, the gaming industry. Crunch time being the sort of hot button topic that a lot of people talk about. But Blizzard also, to be blunt, pays pretty shitty. Like if you're coming in, you're not making anything close to what you could make at another tech company where your skills, are desirable.
But it's like, dude, I'm working at Blizzard. Well, that only goes so far, and I feel that the value of that statement has fallen. But
for Blizzard for sure, but in any game company, right? Oh, I'm a game developer. Okay, well, good for you. Like that's great. But you have to feed your family. As the population of employees age up, right? They go from being 20 somethings out of college, no real responsibilities, to actually having a family. Money becomes more of an issue, and quality of life becomes more of an issue. What's the point in having a family if you can't ever see them because you're busy crunching? So the industry chases a lot of people out. A lot of companies rely on their cachet in the industry and being a desirable place to work as a way to sort of lure college kids in who don't know what their labor is worth because they've never worked really in a job like that in a professional setting. And they can put them through the grist mill, and those people in their 30s realize this is a dead end. I'm never going to make the right kind of living. I can go work at my bank, or I can go work for an insurance company, or I can go work for, the hospital and make 50% more, 40% more. And
that's why devs end up making spreadsheets instead of cool video things. Also, video games are hard. Well, you're asking the computer to do like all of its cool things
at once.
Yeah.
And so where I'm going with all this is to say, so what you're doing is chasing the talent out of the industry, chasing the people who have 4 or 5 years of experience, 7, 8 years of experience, who have figured out all the lessons, right? Because as human beings, as a rule, are not good about learning from other people. They're good about learning from their own experience. And as a result, we have to relearn the lessons of the past. Now, you can do that on a micro scale, and it doesn't have too much impact. And if you have more senior people above you to help guide you and maybe help you course correct away from the mistakes that they've made, you have this process of continual improvement, and things get better and things get more interesting. But we don't have that with gaming because the senior people in the industry are very few and far between, because we've chased most of the people out of the business because of stupid business decisions around things like crunch time. I worked with a game company, one of the founders of whom wrote an article, produced a study where he collected information from game companies and looked at the correlation between the number of hours over 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, and correlated that against the quality of the releases. and proved, based on that data, pretty clearly that crunch time does not make better games, right? It actually makes worse games. Yet, when his company needed to get their game done, what did he do? I'll give you 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count. He put them on crunch time, even though he knew for sure that it was a bad idea.
Right.
And so this is where it's just endemic to the industry. I don't know how to fix it. I left, I'm now gaming adjacent, right? And I never had crunch time that bad, to be fair, because I was in the technology side, not in the game development side of the business. But I've gone and I've moved out of the game industry because honestly it pays better, and I still get to do fun stuff. I still get to work with people who are passionate about gaming, so I love where I'm at. But that's not the majority of people's experience, right? They leave the game industry to go into a real, air quotes, real job, and we lose all that talent, and it sucks because it causes exactly what you're talking about. Well, anyway.
No. I wonder though, like when we're gonna see the next big, like, being built in someone's garage game. Like, here's a team of people. Like, you remember those old stories? Like, it's kind of like, the Bill Gates and like the Wozniak story of like, building the computer out of their garage, or like, if you've ever watched the making of, we've talked about Myst on the show, but if you watch like the making of Riven, the sequel to Myst by the Cyan guys, they have this really cool video, and they talk about like, it was like they had this like 2-story garage, and it was like 10 people packed in the upstairs portion of this garage around these like computers, at someone's house. Or like you hear like the origins of like Valve, where they're like at Gabe's house, like sitting around in like different parts of the house trying to like develop this game. People trying to go out and start these new things, and like these entrepreneurial mindsets of like wanting to build a thing because they've got these cool ideas for how a cool game can be made, or something revolutionary that they've got, stuck in their head on what they would like to do. And, a lot of times, these indie games are definitely passion projects. I think about the guy who, he's in our Discord. He's building that, HunterNet game. Yeah. And I've played that a good bit, and I've played it with him and a bunch of other people. And I'm just like, man, you're doing all the right things with this game. Like you're taking a lot of feedback. You're getting people in here playing it. You're getting involved with them. You're listening to them, and you're building something out that just like these other games of the genre that are coming out right now just are not doing. And I think too about like how back in the day, Nintendo and Sega and these guys, they had these studios of people that were play testing their games on a regular basis. Like they would hire people to come in as testers and play these games and give feedback, and that were gamers and stuff like that. And now the consumer is the tester. It's just like, we're gonna launch this game, we're gonna get the live feedback, everybody's gonna complain about it, and then we're gonna fix what's wrong with it. And it's just like the quality of standards has just shifted drastically because I don't know, someone can afford to do it, I guess. Like it's weird. And for what it's worth, that's kind of where I see things with OtherWorlds. Now, OtherWorldsGG may not be making video games yet, but I definitely do see this as a place where it's just like, let's bring ideas to the table. Let's talk about stuff. Let's try and see what we can accomplish and what we can do. And as gamers, like, try and put our heads together and enjoy this medium. Games preservation as an example, this medium together. So
imagine a world.
Yeah.
Where we have 30-foot tall mechs. No, I absolutely. I mean, I think everyone plays games as a game in the back of their mind. Oh my God. If only somebody would make this, right? And we touched on this in the news last episode. Microsoft is offering indie kind of development tools through Azure soon. And the democratization or the popularization of game making. We had Dreams on the PS4 a couple years back. Mario Maker 2 and previous to that, Microsoft had a Project Spark for a number of years. None of them has really caught on, to where we're getting games actually published with these platforms. No. But I think it's setting the stage for that to happen in a handful of years, where the people who did these things growing up will
there's a new
put that passion in a new tool.
There's a new one out there called Core, which is in beta, and it's for Unreal on Epic. So there's a platform called Core which utilizes the Unreal Engine, and you can go in and use the elements and assets to make your own game. So it's kind of like a Project Spark or something like that gets.
You know what it most reminds me of is, have you ever joined one of those Minecraft servers that's like a Minecraft arcade, and there's like a hub
or Gary's mod, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you go over and touch the sign, and now we're racing go-karts, or the other all this crazy shit that's been done in Minecraft. Core seems like one of those kind of things. It's almost like whenever all those Second Life competitors came out, which some of them looked like really cool ideas. And then what we've recently found, I don't know if you guys saw the post, that UFO convention that's going on in May. It's like $140 to show up, and it's basically like you're logging into a Second Life server, and then they're doing the convention in there. So it's gone from like, hey, it's video gamey stuff, to, hey, we got this 3D avatar world that's kind of MMO, but it's a jank, clunky MMO. The true experience.
The thing that's different about Core, though, is that you're not like an avatar in a hub world and playing games. Like, there's actually like a menu interface where you can go and like, oh, I want to download this game that someone's making, or I can go and make my own. And there's somebody in the beta for Core has actually gone in and remade like the original Battlefront in there.
Well, that's cool, because I thought it was just some Roblox stuff. It's like, hey,
no,
Roblox, it looks like Fortnite.
No, it's not. It's not like that at all. I mean, we're talking about like, people are pulling in assets from the asset store and building stuff, and
maybe I need to look again, because I was thoroughly not impressed the first time I looked at it. I was just like, oh yeah, you too.
Yeah, Core is definitely a different avenue. So, but anyway. There's definitely some cool things to be had, and I am really excited because there are a lot of really cool tools out there, and there are a lot of really great communities making some really cool gaming stuff. I think there's just a lot of passionate people that are really frustrated with the games industry as a whole, whether it be from coverage of the games industry or like AAA developers just not really understanding what the fans really want. Because, even Squadrons was a big disappointment for me. It's entertaining and it's fun to play, but it's nowhere near what they made it seem like it was going to be based on their history and passion for X-Wing and Rogue Squadron and stuff like that. I'm like, it's neither of these things. It's not even close.
My only hope there is that like the developer up against EA corporate inertia, and I have a feeling it's sort of a miracle did. And maybe I'm hoping that the backlash about the game not being grander in scale or scope means that it didn't tank the whole possibility of getting like a full-fledged sequel.
Well, who knows? We might now, because thankfully the Lucasfilm branch has decided to say, EA, you're no longer the sole proprietary for making Star Wars games. We're cutting that tie early. We're not saying you're done making Star Wars games. It's just you're not going to be the only one anymore.
Yeah, it's not an exclusive license. Thank God.
And now we're going to get Ubisoft for what it's worth. Ubisoft has seen some of its fair share of troubles over the last few years, but Ubisoft has definitely been making a lot of really good open world games. So for them to be making a Star Wars one is definitely interesting, and I am very intrigued. So,
yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, I believe that we will benefit from having more people making games, because the cream will rise and we will hear about it. That said, I think one of the hardest things right now is discovery. And there's so, we've talked about this before, there's so many games going on Steam every single day that we don't get an opportunity to play some really great games. And I have a really strong feeling like that's the good application of all the AI technology they're using to try and sell us stuff by tracking us across the internet. Why don't you take that technology and apply that AI to game discovery? Show me the games that I actually really want to play. Just a thought.
No, I get you. Well, I definitely think that that'll cover us for today. I mean, we've had a lot to talk about. We've got a lot of passion on our minds about games and stuff like that. So I think that'll do it for today. But we're still running our giveaway over on our Discord, so feel free to come on over for that. Once we get to 100 people, we'll be throwing out some $25 gift cards here and there. So tell all your friends.
That's right.
You can find us at discord.otherworlds.gg, and you can also find this podcast and links to all of the things, including our Steam group, curator page, and whatnot. If you go to www.otherworlds.gg, you can see the links to all the things. So that's where that's at. It's been a pretty good show. I'm really looking forward to next time. So until then, take it easy, game on, and this has been episode number 17.
Yeehaw.